the Pacers offense. But is there anything specific that you think we can expect to see from this team, whether it's just a particular way that their offense is going to be run or maybe a particular player that will be used differently?
Yeah, I mean, several things. I think if you look back, like just over the last 2 years, Nate McMillan, the Pacers were kind of good at being vanilla. Like the actions were very, one and done. It was somewhat hitchy, and they needed to get more movement. So Nate Bjorkgren did that to his credit. I mean, they were close to the top of the league in motion. They had people moving on the weak side, but it became pretty mechanical and predictable and somewhat of what they were doing. Like I think there was other options they could have hit, but it very much felt like a micromanaged offense. So I think now with Rick Carlisle, maybe you get a little bit of both blended in and you get an upgrade in that way. And that he has some very nuanced and good play calls that I think will fit various of their players. But at the same time, I think that's what people assume of him. But he also did a good job. I mean, in some of it's Luka, like having the benefit of everything that Luka brings. But using very simple actions at the beginning of a play to really empower playmakers and to create small edges. I mean, I wrote a piece that people can go and look at about structure, while Malcolm Brogdon kind of hit on this. So like teams that have too much structure are robotic, and teams that don't have enough are too up and down. And the Pacers were kind of both sides of that coin last year. So I think just in their Spain actions, they would always go, and the ball handler would be coming off the left side. And when you watch the Mavericks, they a lot of times those screens are flat. So like a ball handler is going to have more options to go off either way, and then the back screener can leak out either way. So that just creates a little bit more randomness. But I think from an individual player standpoint, I would like to see, and I wrote about this with Myles Turner a year ago, that just, the fake it till you make it thing from three. So like he shot more threes last year, but if you're making yourself a legitimate threat, even if you're not hitting those at a super high clip, I think that would draw a little bit more attention to him. And I actually use Porzingis as an example because the Mavericks were using him as a trailer in transition. And I think there's a psychology to that. So I think that Myles is kind of one of the last starters that kind of has probably maybe some untapped potential there that hasn't really been delved out if he can, and I do think some of this is just on him. Like at a certain point in time, you just have to make shots. Like only 27% of his threes were contested last year. So at a certain point in time, you just have to hit those. But I think you'll still see Sabonis being empowered as a playmaker. I think you'll see team ball from the guard positions with both Brogdon and LeVert being able to play off of each other and downhill. So that's kind of a glossy overlook, I guess we should say.
Part of this is obviously because the Mavericks had Luka and he's such a heliocentric player. But the Mavs were Indiana, first of all, was fourth in average possession time after Karis LeVert made his debut last year. That was per unpredictable. The Mavericks during that same span were 25th. Do you expect that Carlisle is going to slow things down with his team or maybe take away from their transition volume? Does that question not even matter because it's not like the Pacers were this world-beating offense anyway? So making those types of, I don't want, maybe not wholesale shifts, but shifts aren't that big of a deal.
Right. And this is going to sound contrary to the entire Nate McMillan tenure because there was a lot of pressure of like this team needs to play faster. And in part they did because of what their shot profile was. When you're leaning on mid-range shots, that's pretty boom or bust. And they just needed to get more possessions in order to stay ahead. Like they didn't have a very nuanced offense. Now, Nate Bjorkgren did that, like you just mentioned. They really dialed it up, but I don't think that was completely to their advantage. In part, I think he dialed up the pace because they had to outrun their own defense, but in so doing, it impacted and made their defense worse. Like when you're taking very quick shots, that's your first line of transition defense, honestly. If you're taking a quick kamikaze layup that doesn't really have much of a chance and you're just attacking for the sake of playing fast, that can lead to fast break scores at the other end. And then it just was creating like a vicious cycle between where they were getting advantages from. So I don't think it's going to be a bad thing if the overall offense is functioning at a better level, if they're not playing as slapdash as what it was over the last 2 months of the Bjorkgren era.